This is a Willets Point Shea Stadium bound 7 express train. The next and last stop is Willets Point, Shea Stadium.
Oh, yes, it is the Subway to Shea Podcast. Anthony Rivera here with you, talking about all the news and happenings surrounding that team from Queens, the New York Mets. It's episode 218 from the Subway to Shea Studios in my office. You can follow me on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea. You can follow me personally at Ant Rivera 86. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, if you prefer to listen to the show. But if you want to be a part of the chat, you want to be a part of the conversation, you are doing that right here on YouTube and as well as X, as you could definitely be participating on X as well. And make sure you can support the podcast with a super chat, super stickers. That's all on YouTube as well. Well, you guys see what it says right next to me. The Mets collapse, pretty much complete. Probably the worst possible way, because if the Reds would have won, I think on Sunday, it would have been, a mute point of the Mets trying to, come back, trying to win. But the fact that the Reds lost on Sunday, giving the Mets an opportunity to win a game and get in. There's been so many opportunities, absolutely so many opportunities for this team within the last week itself to come back and take hold of that final wild card spot. And they get done to them what they did to the Arizona Diamondbacks last year and lose by percentage points. They only win 83 games, go 83 and 79. And look, maybe I'm a little bit at fault for, and I say I'm a cautious optimistic, but even towards the end, maybe they just win that one game. Maybe it just gets them in. I know they were 0 for 69, but maybe they finally get that one win in. And nothing. Since June 13th, absolutely nothing. This team fell apart. They collapsed. It's just another long line. I have watched the Mets since 1998. And in that time, we've already seen 3 collapses. How many teams or how many fan bases can say that they've seen that from their teams? I don't know that many. Maybe there are some out there in other sports and stuff like that, but definitely in baseball right now, most recently, the Mets have continue to outdo themselves. And it's very frustrating. It's very upsetting that they're not in the postseason. Although, I will say this, a part of me kind of was looking forward to the season ending. And I'm only saying that because the season's so long, it takes so much out of you. And, you invest so much in the team, whether you go to the game, you buy their merchandise, you support the players. And to have it end this way, part of you gets a little sense of relief. I don't know if that makes any sense, if maybe I'm wrong on that. And as Maureen's saying, it's just a slow death over time. And man, it's really hard to just think of all the words, considering we've seen this before. We've seen this group of players fall apart before, right? 2021, they had the division lead until August. They fell apart. 2022, they ran roughshod, won 101 games, but in that last week, they fell apart, lost the division, got sent home from the wild card. 2023, they were a complete disaster. So in the Cohen era, we've only had 2022, we've had 2024, and that's it. And 2022 is super disappointing. So, it just sucks that, and it's painful, as Nelson Cruz says. Shout out to the chat. We got 48 people in the room already. I know that there's a lot of shows out there right now doing post-mortem. I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys are tired of it. We're going up against the NFL, and the Jets are getting ready to play. So I appreciate every single one of you for tuning in here. And I want to bring on my good friend. I got to bring on Top Bunk Sports, my guy David from Top Bunk Sports. And I had to bring him on because he has been at the stadium for most of the year. Most of the season, Top Bunk is there. He's posting clips, posting big at-bats and stuff like that. went on vacation this week, and I actually tried to get you on. I think it was last week we tried to get
Yeah.
this on and get this going, but when they finished their home series and for the season, but it wasn't able to work out. And then you hit me up last night, and I, you know what, let's do this now, because why not? I mean, you were one of the guys out there almost every game. You know, personally for you, sitting there for a lot of these games, you know, let me ask you this first off, because I was there with you in 2023. Like, I had my ticket package at the time. I did 2023, 2024. I couldn't do it this year because, you know, obviously we were having the baby, and we had to, you know, allocate funds in a better way instead of having Met games. But I did get to go to a couple games this year. Besides that, I said to myself, even though I sat through 2023 and we knew, you and I were in the stadium together a lot of the times, we knew how bad that team was. I don't know if I felt as bad as I do right now.
Right. Well, first and foremost, appreciate you having me on. You're my guy as always. Shout out to the chat, man. Yeah, listen, to me, a lot of people always ask me, like, man, you put so much funds into season tickets, you put so much time, and you invest so much time into this team. How do you not get sick of it? And I call myself a psycho just because I find myself always giving them that extra of they're gonna get over it. Something's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And if you remember last year, I caught myself when we clinched the NL when we clinched to go on to the NLCS, and we did it at Citi Field. So that was the best part. But I found myself going down to 114. It was kind of 122, but I just found myself looking around, seeing the picture of us advancing to the NLCS, the players on the field, celebrating with the playoff t-shirts,
They
the
were crying,
fireworks.
man. They were
Literally,
crying.
Brandon Nimmo was in tears, as well as Lindor. Like, that's a moment where, you know, and I teared up because we don't see it often. And for a team like that, like last year, to fight to where they had to fight and get to where they get to then go into the offseason and land the big fish, you automatically thought that this team was going to be in a dominance. And it was like that for probably maybe 3 months up until they got into June. Then everything just switched. Everything started to crumble little by little. And, you know, for me, just being there live, you're always saying to yourself, they're going to get through it. They're going to get through it. They had that moment where they swept the Phillies in Citi Field. McLean started that series. And when they swept the Phillies, at that moment, I said, oh, now the turnaround is here. Because the biggest test of having to play the team that is leading your division to sweep them, that right there was the ultimate, oh, okay, the turnaround's happening. But every time they got there, they took 2 steps back, and it just never went our way. Because right after that, we had to play Miami, and you know what happened. We don't have to, but the fall just kept going little by little, and you, to be honest with you, it was almost like the tease was happening, where they showed some type of momentum, and then it just kept crumbling towards the end. So it's one of those things where, you know, this team, they put you in position to always want to be there for them and always want to, you know, give them a chance. But you always have to have in the back of your mind, like, maybe this is not it, because it's happened for so long.
Yeah, it was a 3-month run from June 13th on where this team played awful baseball. Yeah. Maybe there was a glimmer of hope. I think they even threw in like a 7-game winning streak at some point in there, and you're like, oh, that's a turning point. Nope. You mentioned the series against Philadelphia. Nope. And even towards the end, even that last day, and I'm like, you know what? They exercise the demons against the Braves. They're going to do it here. They're going to give us this. Even if they lose in the wild card round, they're going to at least get in and exercise the Miami Marlins demons. And it's crazy to think, because that was about almost close to 2 decades ago that happened. And the fact now that these guys, because this still goes against, you know, you talk about these guys coming back for the alumni game, and they had to talk about what they went through in 2007 and 2008, that still is attached to them. And this is forever going to be attached to Juan Soto and Lindor and Alonso and Nimmo, unless they win a World Series. And right now, you came out of 2024, right? We were all a high out of 2024. But even to me, even once they signed Soto, I'm like, we're not done yet, right? They signed Pete Alonso. We need pitching. We need still, and David Stearns puts together another makeshift, rotation of guys. And I said, you know what? I know lightning striked once. I don't know if it's going to happen again. I'm not comfortable with the rotation being the way it is. And it ended up being the downfall of this entire team. Obviously, the offense, highly disappointed during the season. And we'll get a lot more into that once we get a little deeper into the show. But let's, we got to talk about this complete epic collapse that happened over the past 6 days. Back and forth between the Mets and the Reds, changing who was going to be, leading the wild card. Obviously, the Reds had the advantage because they had the tie break. So the Mets took 2 out of 3 from Chicago, went into Miami with the lead on Friday, lost that game. Reds won, tie. Tie break goes to the Reds. Mets win on Saturday with I would say, epic performance, but probably the best pitching performance of the year in a must-win situation from Clay Holmes, who, I mean, you can say what you want about him, probably the most consistent starting pitcher in the rotation. Yeah, there's a couple of games he came out 4th inning, but most of the time he's pitching 5 innings. Most of the time he's only giving up 2 to 3 runs, and he left the team every time with an opportunity to win a game. This time, I think he pitches 6 innings, gives up only 1 hit, no runs, and really delivered when the Mets needed him the most. And then you go to Sunday, and I know it was all hands on deck, but I did not think that Carlos Mendoza was going to take that literally. I did not think he was going to hook Sean Manaea as quickly as he did, and then to go into the bullpen the way that he did with Huascar Brazaban, and then going to Brooks Raley early. And then, eventually, the game's on the line, scoreless game, and you're bringing in the guy with the 5.30 ERA and Ryan Stanek, who has been awful all season long. And I was one of them who said, you know what, let's hold on to Ryan Stanek. Maybe if we get to the postseason, maybe things will change. And as we slowly started to disintegrate as a team, I was like, oh, maybe it's not. Like, what if we don't get to the playoffs? What's the point of having Ryan Stanek a part of the team? Could have given an opportunity to somebody else. There was a couple of guys that got DFA'd that pitched way better. I mean, Chris Davinsky, Austin Warren, then Kevin Hergert pitched better. There were so many pitchers that got Rico Garcia, and then it got sent back, came back, pitched well again. Like, it was so much that Carlos Mendoza then went through all these guys, brought him in, and then he brings in guys in opportunities that they shouldn't be in. Gregory Soto with men on base. Same thing with Tyler Rogers. They've struggled for most of their tenure in the Mets with runners on base, and you're bringing them on in that position. Edwin Diaz coming in the 5th, 6th inning to pitch 2 innings. Like, at that point, I thought to myself, what are we going to do? Go to the end of Ryan Helsley to close out this game? Like, it just didn't make sense to me. That's where a little bit of my faith got lost in Carlos Mendoza. And I've been a defender of Carlos Mendoza because of what he did last season. But you got to call him out on what this game was. It was not good. Like, backs against the wall, and this is what we're getting from you. Like, I just did not agree with any. David Peterson was stuck on the bench. Could have used him for a couple innings. I don't know what you thought. I know you were on your way back from your trip, but I want to know your thoughts on the way that Carlos Mendoza managed that last game, and just how it all played out. Eventually, the Reds lost. The Mets, all they had to do was win, and they couldn't even muster a run. The offense wasn't there. It was just a mess from beginning to end, and it was fitting that it ended that way.
Right. I mean, the fact that, you start this game off with Sean Manaea, who has really struggled since he came back from his injury. If you were going to go ahead and you were going to pull him after probably 30 pitches, I would have probably brought in my second best lefty, and that would have been David Peterson, somebody that could have given you a little bit more innings than Sean Manaea. But, for Sean Manaea to at least cruise in at least the first three innings, like that, to me, it just shows that he didn't have any confidence. But at the same time, it's like, if you don't have any confidence in Sean Manaea, why are we going straight to the bullpen? I understand you got to go ahead and you got to kind of save your stars or whatever, but this is the end all be all. You got to win this game right here.
Yeah. And
you
on
can't
top
think
of that,
about tomorrow.
why give him the start?
Exactly. That's another question that I, to this day, looking back on that game, I can't even find an answer for it, because it's just like, dude, you got to have a feel for the game. This is why so many people call him out on those type of situations, because this goes back to the second half of the season when we played the Reds in Citi Field, and he was making stupid decisions back then. It started there. Like his mindset for the game, especially in the second half of the season, just fell off. There were a lot of questionable moves that he was making, especially using guys over and over that were never successful. Ryan Stanek must have something on Carlos Mendoza that nobody knows, because he just kept going to Stanek on the most pressure situations that Stanek should have never been put in. And the same thing with Helsley. I respect Helsley. Helsley has one of the best fastballs. He throws 102 miles per hour. I understand that. But when a guy doesn't have it in pressure situations, I am not going to keep putting him in that. So in going back to that last game, it almost felt like he just didn't have a feel for the game, and he was just trying to see what stick in a situation that you can't do that. If you didn't have confidence in Sean Manaea after 2 innings, you should have went to your second best lefty, and that would have been David Peterson. Hell, I would have been fine with what David Peterson would have given me, because I'm like, at least you went to your second best gun who's able to give you some type of length and keep this offense within the game. Because mind you, the Reds didn't score until like the 5th inning. It was a 0-0 game the entire way through. So at least in that mindset, if I'm Mendoza and I'm looking at it from a standpoint of, oh, my offense isn't doing anything, well, I have to keep this game intact. I got to put my best weapons out there. And he didn't do that. So for as much as people want to defend Carlos Mendoza, this is one of the reasons why he has been getting a lot of flack this year, because of that, because he doesn't have a feel for the game in those type of situations.
Yeah, and it's not just this one game. I mean, we've seen it throughout the season. A lot of the chat, not happy with Carlos Mendoza and the way that he managed this team. We can see from derails, Frankie Almeida saying he should have been fired, Nelson Cruz talking about managers being available already. I mean, we saw Rocco Baldelli get canned in Minnesota just recently. We saw Bob Melvin, and if you follow me on Subway to Shea, you know that I can't stand Bob Melvin. I think he's a fraud of a manager. I don't know why he gets so much praise. He failed in Oakland. He failed in San Francisco, Arizona as well. I don't know why.
San Diego.
San Diego with the roster they had. I don't know what the love affair is with Bob Melvin, but there are managers available. We're going to get into why he's not going to be let go, because that's something that was addressed with David Stearns during the press conference earlier. Steve Cohen, he made comments earlier as well, so we'll address those. But yeah, Carlos Mendoza throughout the season, whether it was the lineup when you had a hot bat, Mark Vientos was hot, sits down for a week. Right, Brett Beatty got hot. He sits down for a week, and then they just could not get these guys going. When did you start watching the Mets?
Well, I started watching the Mets when I was probably, I would say, I call myself one of the blessed ones, because even though I am one of the youngest ones, have been to Shea. I started watching the Mets. I could vividly remember the 06 season.
Okay.
So
that's perfect, right? How many times did that lineup change in 06? How many times did they were like, oh, you know what? Let me move Reyes out of here and put this. Reyes, LaDuca, Beltran, Delgado, Wright. Those 5 never moved from the lineup ever.
Willie Randolph knew what he was doing with that 5.
Yeah.
From after 6 below, he was able to at least move it. Like there was a point where Jose Valentin was your number 7 hitter for a consistent amount of time.
Got hot.
Right, exactly. But that 5 right there was never touched. because he knew where the consistency was at. It's funny that you bring that up. I've been one of the proponents, and you and me have had this conversation where I have said, you bring up Mark Vientos, for example. Don't you find it funny that this lineup had success when Mark Vientos and Brett Beatty were in the lineup together? When
Yeah.
Brett Beatty was playing third base every day and Mark Vientos was your DH? All of a sudden, Mendoza gets away from that, and now guys are starting to go cold. This offense can't find this consistency, and that lies to what you're saying, is that he could never keep a consistent lineup. And listen, sometimes as a manager, you got to put your foot down and tell these guys, listen, I got to play the hot hand. Yeah, guys are going to get days off, and that's where I could put you in. But I got to put with the best lineup for me right now, because at the end of the day, the expectation is to win this damn division. And at times, he didn't make us feel like he was confident enough to put a consistent lineup out there.
When Mark Vientos was at his best during the postseason, towards the end of the season, he was batting second. We didn't see that at all this season. Barely,
twice.
Maybe a couple
at
of
least
games. Twice, right?
At
because they wanted Juan Soto there. It's like, oh, why put Juan? Oh no, we got to put Juan Soto 2, because in the Yankees lineup he was 2. Judge was behind him. We got to have it that they should have had Lindor, Vientos. Soto, Alonso. I mean, if he is at his best at the number 2 spot, why not keep him there? Just like when Lindor got hot in the leadoff spot, he's your leadoff hitter now. And they never tried doing that. I know the bottom of the lineup was a disaster because they went, full on kids, and the kids didn't, Beatty wasn't great until towards the end of the season. Not great, but good. Alvarez, even at the beginning of the season, he wasn't himself. The injuries took a toll on him. He got sent to the minors, came back, started playing well, but, he kept getting hit in the hand. I don't know how many times he got hit in the hand, but he did. Ronnie Mauricio was non-existent. And then, you hear Sunday that, like, he's not even paying attention to what's going on in the game. Like, you saw him not pay attention on Friday, which cost them a run, not paying attention at third base. So these guys, some of these guys weren't focused. They weren't focused on defense, which, that's a very important part of the game. And then when you talk about the pitching, if this team is struggling to get innings and length out of the starter, and a guy like Clay Holmes is in the 5th inning, or David Peterson is in the 5th inning, and they're like, at 60, 70 pitches, why are they coming out? If you need length from your rotation, if the bullpen needs rest, why not start them into the next inning? Why not, maybe have someone start getting ready? I just feel like they I don't know. This was totally different from what we saw 2024 from not only the front office, the manager and coaching staff, and the players on the field. And it just ended up being an absolute debacle of a season. And yeah, man, I just, it's very frustrating to see that this team came out this way. I think we all kind of knew at a certain point in this season that it's just not going to work, and they're not going to be in the playoffs. And maybe they didn't even deserve it, right? Because they just played so poorly, letting the Reds back in. They let the Diamondbacks back in. Heck, San Francisco was back in for about a couple of weeks, and they sold at the deadline.
Yeah.
And you had a Mets lineup that was mostly healthy. You had your top stars in there, but they couldn't get hits with runners in scoring position and bring guys in. And I saw a lot of people on X posting, oh, well, the Mets scored 760 or 46 runs. It's 20 runs less than last time. But a lot of those runs are garbage time runs, right? Like a lot of the games they would run up the score. One game, wasn't it like 17, like that game that Nimmo had 9 RBIs. Like they had a lot of those games, and then they came out flat the next week and wouldn't score any runs. They had the historic August, right, for a franchise as an offensive team, and then they lost, and I think they went like 11-17 or 12-17 in that month. Yeah. So, like, even though they scored all those runs, it didn't matter because obviously the pitching was bad in August. But even in the first 2 months, when the pitching was elite, when the ERA was the best in baseball, this team was not scoring in big spots. And that cost them an opportunity in the postseason.
Yeah. I mean, again, I always say inconsistency was the strong key for me. And it starts from head to toe. It starts with Steve Cohen tweeting out the fans, yet the fans broke record numbers in attendance this year. It starts with David Stearns trying to get cute and keeping that small market mentality in a big market when he knows it doesn't work. You signing a guy to that type of contract and a superstar like Juan Soto, a small market mentality is out the window. But he still thought that he could make it work and get cute. It starts with the players not being able to hit consistently. It starts with the rotation. It starts with the lack of defense. How many errors did we have on night-to-night basis? And half of them was Lindor. And I love Lindor to death. I'll take fight for that guy all the way through. But a lot of the errors came from him as well. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So it's like it's a whole organizational problem. And I think with this fan base is that people are trying to kind of point fingers on who it was and who should be here and who should not. At the end of the day, this team as a whole dropped the ball. And at the end of the day, that's what it is. And remember, June 12th, we were like 49-24 at one point.
Yeah, 21
And
games over 500.
we were literally it to me at that point, and I'm not even joking with you. I thought we had it on lock. I said the
Yeah.
Phillies ain't going nowhere. If they make it to the wild card, cool. They got to worry about us. I never would have thought that it would have just disappeared like that because they looked like they were on a roll. So it's a whole the inconsistency in the way they crumbled is a whole organizational problem.
Yeah, 21 games over 500 by June 13th, I think it was, or June 12th, June 13th. And they had the best record in baseball going up against the Dodgers, who at that time also were one of the best teams in baseball. And they had the best ERA in baseball from their entire pitching staff, and a complete, utter meltdown that Mendoza couldn't stop, that Stearns couldn't stop at the trade deadline, that the players in the dugout couldn't stop. The fact that, and I know he wasn't good this season, but when you go to the kids, especially on the bench, and you don't have that veteran presence with Jesse Winker injured and out for the season, you don't have Jose Iglesias, that glue guy, you don't have JD Martinez who provides the wisdom and stuff like that. It just, you're counting on these kids to do stuff. And when your stars go quiet, you have an appetite for disaster with that lineup. And that's what happened this season with this team. Very frustrating to see all around. I am so happy that we're doing this today. I was actually going to split this show and be like post-mortem for this week and then do a season recap. I said, you know what? Let's just do it all in one. Get it out of the way. We can move on, and focus on the off season after this. But Maureen was talking about how she wasn't impressed with the press conference. Not much accountability. We're going to get into the press conference, but first, I do want to talk about what Steve Cohen had to say, because on X yesterday, I posted the fact that I wanted to hear from Steve Cohen. I wanted to hear from David Stern because what we saw this season was unacceptable. I got a lot of pushback from fans I'm surprised about that got frustrated about that. Oh, they don't have to explain anything. They don't have to say anything and do like. We still want to hear from them and what they got to say. Right. I mean, it's all just words at the end of the day. They still have to put together a better team as a whole. But the thing that bothered me with what Steve Cohen says, and I like Steve as an owner. I think he's the best thing that happened. He is the least of the problems of what happened to this team. But when you, at spring training, call out the fan base after what was a very successful postseason run and say that the fans were not showing up towards the end of the season and put out that challenge for us to show up, we show up in droves, over 3 million people, the most in Citi Field history, and we get this product, that's a problem to me. Not only that, but in August, the last time he tweeted before his most recent post today, he was, going at the fans again for, complaining about the team. I guess a lot of fans were complaining to him on X probably, and I feel like probably shouldn't do that. But the fans were frustrated, and I'm pretty sure they're voicing their opinions. And he was talking about, look, no one's saying anything now that they're scoring runs. And then we didn't hear from him again. No one heard from him when the team was doing terrible in September and had that awful August. No one heard from Steve. You look at the way that this team ended up, their record, 83-79 at home. They were 49-32. I remember a time, I think that they had to have been like 30-9 or something like they had a really good home record to start this season. It came back down to earth. Away, they were awful, 34-47. If you look by month, right? March 2-2, April 19-8, May 15-12, and then it starts to go downhill here. June 12-15. July, they were only 14-10. August, which always seems to be a killer for the Mets, 11-17. And then September, they were 10-15. So the Mets were still showing up. Even as this thing was happening, the Mets fans showed up, showed the faith in the team, tried to push them over the hump. They showed up in Miami to help push them over the hump.
They got booed in Miami.
And then they got booed.
They got booed in Miami. Think about that.
And it just, I wanted to hear what Steve had to say, because you don't open your mouth and then, disappear. And then Steve Cohen came out on X today and basically said, Mets fans everywhere, I owe you an apology. You did your part by showing up and supporting the team. We didn't do our part. We will do a post-mortem and figure out the obvious and less obvious reasons why the team didn't perform up to your and my expectations. We are all feeling raw emotions today. I know how much time and effort you have put into this team. The result was unacceptable. Your emotions tell me how much you care and continue to motivate the organization to do better. Thank you to the best fans in sports. That sufficed to me. I thought, I know I expected him to say something, but I thought that was fine enough. I don't know. What are your thoughts on what Steve Cohen had to say in his little statement?
I mean, I wasn't upset. He basically took accountability, and the thing to me is, I'm glad that he didn't wait. He could have waited a couple of days. He could have waited a week, and then all of a sudden just put something out there. He next day put out a tweet, just kind of giving a message to the fans. I mean, Steve Cohen is always going to try to look at it from a standpoint of, I'm trying to put the product out there that I can for the fans to get what they want, and he knows what we want because he is a fan himself. So I'm glad that he came out and said what he said. I also think that tweet was probably something that he tweeted out after having a conversation with David Stearns, which is, if you pay attention to the presser, David Stearns didn't look so, happy and smiling today. He looked very serious. So it could have been a situation where, he had a phone call with Steve Cohen, and, Steve Cohen probably put his foot down. I was like, listen, this is unacceptable. There's no way we put all this effort to bring Juan, and Juan Soto is always going to be the guy when you talk about the conversation, because not only is he one of the best players in the world, but for the contract that you signed him for, this team can't afford to tank. As long as you have a Juan Soto in his prime, you have to compete. So this guy is your stamp and your staple to go out there and compete, and yet we're missing the playoffs for the third year in his 5-year since he put out that tweet back in 2020 saying that he expects a championship.
It's over now. This was
it's
year 5.
Year 5. It's
year
done.
5.
It's completely done.
And he did walk it back the last couple of years when he's been asked about it. But once you open your mouth and you say something like that's it. It's out there. It's out there, and you can't go back from it. But I'm okay with the comments from him. I don't blame him necessarily for this stuff, what happened. And obviously, he's been providing the funds. He, paid for Soto. He's paid for Alonso. He's given the money to some of these projects that David Stearns has wanted. Because a lot of fans will say, David Stearns didn't do the job in getting Juan Soto. That was all Steve Cohen and Alex Cohen and the Cohen family doing that. So, he's going to get a lot of flack for what has happened this past season. And, rightfully so. David Stearns deserves a lot of the blame for what happened here. And I just want to, before we go into his press conference, shout out to, we have 162 people in this room with us right now. On the heels of Monday Night Football and what's going on in sports elsewhere. You're here with me. You're here with my guy, David, Top Bunk Sports. and enjoying the show, and we really appreciate that. Shout out to Stephen Dilcher in the chat, Maureen, Derails up in here as well, Frankie Almeida, Nelson Cruz. Appreciate every single one of you for being a part of this show today, as well as I think it was there Ava in here as well. Appreciate you. And Maureen, thank you so much for the $10 chat. I appreciate you. She said they need to make a lot of changes this offseason or the fans won't show up like they did this year. Honestly, even if they do make the changes, I think that maybe, and tell me if you agree with this, Mets may have lost some fans here. Not saying like they won't come back, but they built a lot of equity with the fan base for what happened last season. And not only did they lose in this excruciating fashion, but they don't make the playoffs. Basically, it's super easy now to make the postseason. You have the highest payroll in baseball, and you can't get into the postseason. It's ridiculous the way that this has happened. It reminds me of 2020 when only 4 teams did not make the postseason in the COVID year. And guess who was one of them? The New York Mets. And that was under the Wilpon times. I mean, we have to get to a point at the very least where we're going to postseason play every year. I mean, the Yankees do it. And I don't want to hear Met fans go against Yankee fans right now. Oh, well, they had an easy schedule. We had easy teams to beat, and we didn't take care of business this year. The Marlins, the Nationals, the Pirates, the Reds.
The Orioles.
We shouldn't have been backing in this year. The Orioles, we should not have been backing into the postseason this year. This is all on this entire team from top to bottom, like you said, from the top of the organization all the way down to the players. Unacceptable. Yeah. And then we had David Stearns come out and talk today about, he came out with his comments. And obviously it's all words, right? I think the biggest takeaway for me is his emphasis on run prevention. That's the biggest takeaway I took. So what that tells me is a lot of these guys who have struggled defensively are probably not going to be here. And I wouldn't be shocked if Pete Alonso is one of those guys. Now, I love Pete Alonso. I want him to be back. I think that his offensive production outweighs his defensive deficiencies, and that you can figure out another spot to add to the defense, whether it's in, center field or their left field, whatever. I feel like you can do a lot worse at first base if you don't bring back Pete Alonso, because on top of having to get a defensive first baseman, now you're having to, find this over 40 home runs, over 120 RBI production, and that is not easy to find.
Right. And it's interesting that you say that, because this is kind of what since coming back from vacation, I've been on Spaces all day today. This is kind of what my question for those people that think, it may not be smart for Pete Alonso to come back, for the Mets to sign him. The production that he gives you offensively, if you look at the free agent class for first base, nobody gives you that production. That's number one. Number two, Pete Alonso in that class is the number one guy. And then it's, everybody else that's, I think, the second best guy behind them is Josh Naylor. Like that right there, it's a drop off to me. Like that, I'd rather stick with the guy that I know than the guy that I don't know. See, at least Pete Alonso has had success. I mean, you can't erase 35 plus bombs and 126 RBIs. It's not possible. So to me, it's like, I'd rather, if I'm Steve Cohen and I'm David Stearns, ask him what he wants and just pay the guy at this point. Because you can't afford to lose another big star like that when you're trying to go out here and win. I understand it may be an overpay. I get it. People have issues with the fact that his defense is questionable. He's ranked number 20. He's ranking like the bottom 20s of defense. I understand that. I get that. But at the end of the day, we watch these games every day. He's not making errors every single game. We can live with his defense, with his defensive lapses and whatever. It's his production on the field that is more important. And on top of that, he's always healthy. He
Yeah.
doesn't get hurt. So it's like, to me, it's like that right there is a writing on it's right. It's the writing on the wall. If I'm David Stearns, I'm like, yo, I have to go sign this guy. Now, the negative side to that is that we all know who his agent is. So no matter what David Stearns and Steve Cohen do, Scott Boras is probably going to tell him, well, look at these options. Go check out these options before you try to stay where you're at and see what these options give you. And I could give you probably maybe 3 teams right now that would probably be looking into maybe getting them. You could talk about the Cubs. You could talk about Milwaukee. Hell, if the Yankees wanted to get him, they could, because Goldschmidt's on a 1-year deal. And and from the Yankee fans that I talk to, they can't wait for Goldschmidt to go. So you're talking about getting younger with a Pete Alonso who's already giving you better production than I mean, Goldschmidt had a better average, but you're talking about a better power hitter right now. So I got to worry
and
about
he hits the ball
teams.
fields.
Exactly. So again, I got to worry about 3 teams that could possibly go ahead and be like, whatever you want, Pete, come along. So again, as much if I'm David Stearns and I'm Steve Cohen, I'm giving him whatever he wants. Now, if he decides not to take that, at least us fans know that you went in there with urgency and decided to give him whatever he asked for. You can't. I can't be mad at Steve Cohen and David Stearns for actually giving him whatever he wanted and Pete still walking away. That's a whole different story. But if you don't put your foot down and you wait to the last minute, then it's like, all right, what are we doing here? So I think it's in a more difficult spot now because he's kind of, he had a better season this year. So now he's going into free agency again with a little bit more,
much better spot.
Right.
Yeah.
But if I'm them, it's like, dude, you've built your career here. You're most likely your number is going to get retired when you're done here. Like number 20 is going in the rafters because of you. Let's try to win this championship with you staying here forever. So,
Yeah, that's I think for me, it's what do you want? Is it years? Is it the money? Like, can we get to a point where we'll give you the money, but can we cut it to maybe 5 years? That cuts him to 35, because obviously, 36, 37, you're starting to talk about, deterioration here. But eventually, and I think, I don't know if you read it from The Athletic, but Will Salmon in his article when he was talking about Pete Alonso opting out was the fact that a lot of people have been saying, scouts and people around organizations, that eventually he's going to have to be the DH of the team.
Yeah.
So, that's something that a lot of teams are going to have to think about. Obviously, he could do it, right? And maybe that's better for his health in the long run, for him to stay healthy. David, he played in 162 games this year. He played the whole season, not just this year, last year as well. Last 2 seasons, played a full season. That cannot be forgotten. On top of that, he's shown you what he can do in this town, not just in New York, but in Queens. It's not easy to play in New York. You're scrutinized to a whole different level than you are from the Yankees. And we've seen guys come here from free agency and not pan out. So the fact that Pete Alonso already can play in this town is enough for me to want to bring him back. I think M-Easy, BX saying 5 years, 175 is as high as he would go for Alonso. I think that's fair.
That's perfect.
I think that's a fair deal. I don't know if that's what he'll take, but if they can get a deal like that done, I'm signing that immediately, because I don't want to see Pete go.
Right. I think the closest you could probably do, to be honest with you, I'll do the 5 years, 180. I'll give him 180. You want your 180? Go ahead. Any other team that's going to pay him 200 mil, if he wants to go, because I don't think, you know what it is? It's the age factor for me. He's in his 30s. You 5 years is fine. You give him 200 mil, cool, whatever. But and you start going higher within the years. You start to think about it. You're like, would I want to dabble with that? You know what I'm saying? Like he's only getting older. At some point as he gets older, you're gonna have to have that conversation with him about possibly being a DH. But at the same time, it's like you said. You can't find a lot of first basemen that are playing 162 games on a year-to-year basis. And on top of that, not only is it pressure to play in New York on 162 games, but he performs in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like you can't forget about that. So he's, especially now after getting a small contract and then actually playing better and now testing the market again, I think he deserves his money. I think this year he deserves what he's asking for compared to
And
last year.
we talk about hitting with runners in scoring position. He was hitting 309.
Yeah.
He basically carried the offense the first
Yeah.
2 months of the season. We are
Yep.
not in this. We are not anywhere close to 83 wins if
Hmm.
Pete Alonso doesn't do what he did. Like, he was on MVP pace at that time.
Yeah.
And now, to think about losing his production, honestly, if he goes, I don't know if I trust David Stearns to replace that production from what we've seen from him. Like, it would have to take Steve Cohen to step in and signed, I don't know, like a Kyle Schwarber, or it was mentioned in the chat. I think BX also, MEZ also mentioned Kyle Tucker. Like, it's going to take these type of names to get that production back. I know Cody Bellinger also is available in the offseason, and he can play first base, I've heard. So that's
Hmm.
another name. But like, I don't really know if I want to replace Pete. I just don't.
There's a situation within that Kyle Tucker thing where if let's say if it does happen where Pete goes somewhere else, you could possibly be talking to Juan Soto and be like, listen, you want to play first base, that position is all yours. Kyle
He
Tucker's
has been
coming in.
practicing. We see it every so often.
Kyle,
I'm pretty
Kyle,
sure you've seen it at the games.
Oh, 100. I get there early, and this dude is literally standing there like he's been playing first bases, and like he's literally taking short hops like he's been there his whole career. So if that's a conversation they want to entertain because of the fact that they go out there and they're like, listen, we want Kyle Tucker because Pete's gone, I'm okay with that because Kyle Tucker is a prominent lefty hitter. The problem is he's always hurt. So it's like, then again, that's another situation that you're putting yourself in because you couldn't sign your primary first baseman. So no matter what they do after that, they're in a bind. They're in a tough situation. Another thing is that they can't even get somebody from their farm to come up and replace that. The closest that they can do is Ryan Clifford, and he's up and down.
Yeah, he's
That's
not even
another
ready.
situation.
He's still in
No,
Double A. He's not ready yet.
exactly. So it's either you sign Pete or you take a risk on somebody else and you're losing that production no matter what anybody tells you.
And MEZ said she would take Kyle Tucker in right field and sign Soto up for first base. We'll definitely get into a lot of conversation in the offseason in a couple of weeks. I'll start diving a little more deeper into the free agent pool and possible trade candidates as well, because a lot of work needs to be done. This team is not building off of 2024 anymore. They had that opportunity. Now they have to kind of trigger this roster, re-trigger
Right.
the team and figure out, how they are going to get themselves back into the postseason, because to me, this year was about making it back to the NLCS, and now we're not even in the postseason. We're sitting at home, and that sucks. Another thing that was mentioned by David Stearns was the fact that Carlos Mendoza was going to return. That was the biggest talking point for a lot of fans in the fan base, because a lot of fans wanted him fired. And, towards the end, I was starting to lean towards it, even though I liked Carlos Mendoza. But the fact that this team was not able to turn it around, the fact that what we saw in the last game of the season, I was like, you know what? Maybe Carlos isn't the right person, because look at how quickly they fired Buck Showalter after the team won 101 games. And then, they had a tough 2023, which was built with a lot of old parts and a lot of injuries. And even the fact that they traded away all these players at the trade deadline, they still came back and went 500 with Jonathan Aruiz and Rafael Ortega's in the lineup. The fact that Buck was able to keep them at 500, like, that team would have beat this team right now.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So I know a lot of people are upset that he's staying, but there's a lot of talk that they're going to reevaluate the coaching staff. What is your thoughts on, the coaching staff as a whole, keeping Carlos Mendoza, and what they should do with the rest of this staff?
I mean, I didn't there's a reason why I really didn't give an opinion on Mendoza going, because I kind of figured he was gonna stay. Um, this is kind of reminding me like Willie Randolph. '06, you make the NLCS, you get to game 7. '07, he stays, the collapse. They give him '08, they fire him in the middle of the '08 season. I mean, we had just won when they fired him. I remember that vividly because it shocked the
Yeah,
hell out of me. I
yeah.
know we weren't playing as well, but he was still in a manageable position where they could still probably fight for a playoff spot when they fired him. Um, this is kind of what it's reminding me of. He make Mendoza, we make the NLCS, except we didn't win the division, but we got there through the wild card and everything like that. Then you have this collapse, and now he's in for a third year to prove himself, to prove that 2025 was just a 1 year bad effect, which is why I saw him coming back. In terms of the coaching staff, to be honest with you, and there's not a lot of hitting coaches that I could look at and be like, you know what, I want him. There's one guy that I respected the most that brought a lot of out of the offense, and that was Kevin Long. He's not here no more. That was one guy that stuck to a regimen and had everybody in that lineup on a consistent pace, and he's not here no more. Another guy that I actually thought got through the entire lineup was Chili Davis. He's not here no more. Shout out to the 2019 Mets. Didn't make the playoffs, but they were on fire offensively, especially in the second half of the year. He's not here no more. There's not really that much options that I can think of. So unfortunately, we might have to still deal with Jeremy Barnes and Eric Chavez as much as I don't want to. I've been a fired Barnes and Chavez campaign since day one. But you got to deal with the facts. There's one guy that I don't think everybody kind of talks about, and I think it's Jeremy Hefner. I think our time's up with him. I think he has to go. He's given enough leash. You just gotta let it go. You gotta let it go. There's nothing that Jeremy Hefner does at this point that screams that he's going to have success. It's not. And I don't know how you feel about that. In terms of the hitting coach, there's one thing that just came up in my mind, and that's maybe them getting the hitting coach from AAA and saying, you know what? Come up here, see what you could do. Because for some reason, every time a batter goes down to AAA, they start hitting bombs like it's no tomorrow. But every time they come up here, they're ice cold. So maybe that's the only effect that they can have. Other than that, I have no. I can't tell you right now. I would have to kind of build on it. But yeah, unless they want to call JD Martinez, shout out to Marine, and be like, yo, JD, listen, bro, it's something. If you want a job, here it is. Or Beltron, but I don't even think Beltron wants that. I think Beltron wants to stay in the upstairs and really handle front office situations. But it's hard right now.
Yeah. I was thinking about that, about what if they brought the AAA coach up, the AAA hitting coach. He
Mhm.
works with the kids. He already knows them. How much influence is he really going to have on Juan Soto and Lindor? They have
Right,
their own regimens. Pete
right,
Alonso, Nimmo, they do their own things. He'd be working with the kids and trying to get them figured out and help them out here. I thought that might have been probably one of the better situations to look about. But when you talk about Jeremy Hefner, uh, when we're talking like 2022, I
yeah,
was
yeah.
never the biggest Jeremy Hefner fan. The fact that he just sits in the dugout, waits so long to come out and check in on these pitchers, even if it is just to calm them down for a sec. I don't think I saw him on Sunday at all.
No, no,
He did
no.
not
I
come out to.
watching the game back. I don't think I saw him even step foot next to Mendoza. I think he was in that dugout just standing there.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
like, even during the season, beginning of last season into this season, why are you not coming out when like guys are getting men on base? Give them a breather. Talk to them for a sec. Like, try to just calm them down. To get everything was after runs were given up, or after the bases were loaded. Nothing was ever managed to me by Jeremy Hefner, outside of the fact that we have this pitching lab, and he kind of helped Sean Manaea, who was already turning the corner in San Francisco as a reliever because he was going to a lab himself. So,
right,
you look at maybe he helping Clay Holmes, okay. But what happened to Frankie Montas, right?
right.
What happened to Tyler McGill? He couldn't stay healthy. A lot of these guys, maybe Griffin Canning did okay for a while, but the rest of this rotation fell apart. And,
Right.
he's got a lot to, and not just them, he's got to be a part of the bullpen as well. I mean, he's got to prep those guys as well. So I don't know where they go with Hefner. I think he does stay. I don't know about the hitting coach. That might be where they say, you know what, that this might be the time to let Eric Chavez go, but I'm not sure. Mendoza's staying, and I assume that they're going to keep their team together. I would be shocked, although he inherited all these coaches, right? Mendoza did not get a new crew when he came to become the manager, so maybe there are some changes. It did seem like, I think it was Andy Martino posted, there would be changes, and David Stern said he would go into deep evaluation of these guys and try to figure out what happens. Is there anything else from the press conference that really caught your attention that you'd like to bring up?
Just the fact that when he kept talking about run prevention and urgency, and I don't know, to me it just felt like he was holding certain things accountable, but you could kind of tell he would just wanted to answer questions just to be like, I'm here, like to answer questions, and then that's it. You're not gonna see me until February, type of like. We've been through it for so long that to me that pressure didn't really mean anything to me, because it's like, dude, it's actions speak louder than words. Anything that you say is going through one ear, not the other, because what do you have to say after what we just saw? Like, there's nothing you can say to us right now until you start making the moves that you need to start making. Of course, we're not going to see it until the playoffs are over, but still, he just kept talking about hostility and urgency and run prevention. And the first person I actually thought about when it came to run prevention was Mark Vientos. I was like, oh, he's gone. I was like, he's gone. If it's not Pete, it's definitely Mark.
I mean, well, like what do you really do with Mark Vientos? Because basically, first off, he can't run.
Right.
Secondly, he's a glorified DH. Yes, he'll have some good plays in the at third base, but he's not consistently good at third base as Brett Beatty is, or even Ronnie Mauricio is a better third baseman than him. So where do you put him? Do you just put him at DH? I think that DH spot needs to be open for one. If Pete Alonso returns, he's going to be the guy that eventually becomes the DH. Or, and I even talked about this with Dexter Henry on New York Post Sports, his Straight Out of Flushing podcast. I was always talking about what if the Mets, I know it's hard because he has a no trade, but what if the Mets decide to move on from Brandon Nimmo, that it's time to move on from Brandon Nimmo? And then I'm thinking to myself, you know what? Maybe instead of trading him, why not just get him out of left field, get him out of the outfield, make him the DH? He's not a good left fielder. He was being paid to be a center fielder, only did it for 1 year. Now he's in left field, and he doesn't even play left field great.
Right.
So maybe he becomes the DH. So to me, Mark Vientos becomes expendable.
Yeah. I mean, I've always looked at it from a standpoint of, Mark Vientos has power. You can use him as a DH, but at some point, it's just, if he's not giving you consistency on all counts, why even have him here? At least, Brandon Nimmo, you have to have him here because he's on a big. I don't think anybody else wants to take that contract at this point, especially when he's a liability on defense in the outfield, and the only thing that you could use him for is his bat. You know what I'm saying? So especially now that he's developing his power swing, that might be the only option for Brandon Nimmo at this point, because I don't know how many times he's awkwardly tried to track a fly ball and it never looks safe. He just doesn't look comfortable at all. I don't know if that foot never healed right. I don't know what it is, but every time he tries to run for a ball, he tries to track a fly ball, it never looks comfortable. So I think I agree with you there. I think if that option is not for Pete, I would definitely give it to Brandon Nimmo.
Yeah. As Nelson Cruz saying, you got these teams that put the ball in play. With our bad defense, that's how, like, Chicago, small ball, Miami, small ball. Chicago can beat you with a little bit of power here. But once you put the ball in play and you can't get these, infielders to get the ball, Nimmo is slow and can't get to the ball. He can't throw the ball. You got to start thinking about how to put this team together. Now, before we wrap up with David Stearns here, do you have trust in David Stearns this offseason and what he can do? I know Heading into last offseason, this team needed to fix the rotation, get a legit starter, and kind of rework this bullpen because the pieces were not working. We saw that the Los Angeles Dodgers basically picked us apart. And outside of Edwin Diaz and Ryan Stanek at the time, the rest of the bullpen was absolutely awful and did not help the cause. He really did not take care of those things. He tried putting together these little reclamation projects and, trying to figure things out that way, and it didn't work. Now, I don't blame him for the trade deadline because
Right.
I
Same.
thought on paper that was a really successful trade deadline. He got us an outfielder. He got us relief pitching. The only thing he didn't get us was starting pitching, but it just did not work out. Outside of Tyler Rogers being okay, everything else just did not work out. So where are you at with David Stearns? Do you still have faith? Are you a little holding back on him? I think for me personally, I'm a little cautious on what he can get done because he's got a lot of work to do.
I'm holding back. Because of the fact that you have tried to recreate what you did in 2024 with these reclamation projects, and it just didn't work this year. You have not given me a off season where I can definitively say that he's going to dominate and he's going to be aggressive. Now, of course, he has said multiple times in this presser, we're going to be more proactive and we're going to do this and that. Well, again, it's like I said, actions speak louder than words. And at the end of the day, there's a lot of holes on this team that you saw killed us to the point where we couldn't even win our very last game to get into the playoffs. And I'm kind of glad they didn't, because this team probably would have got exposed by the Dodgers. As much as we feel confident that this offense could probably wake up out of nowhere and beat the Dodgers, the pitching doesn't allow that. And that's the problem. Like, this Dodger team is still a very dangerous lineup. I was never confident that this rotation would just go in against the Dodgers and do something magical. So you got to be able to be aggressive enough to be able to fix this rotation. And to be honest with you, after what he said today in terms of, McLean getting an opportunity and how we still have Shamanaya under contract, what he said about Kodai Senga, obviously Clay Holmes had a good reaction, but that's understandable because he, like you said earlier, he's been the only consistent, our best starter in the rotation. Those already 5-6 guys already that can give you a rotation. Am I saying that it's a good rotation? Absolutely not. But what it screams to me is that they're going to look at those guys and be like, why go ahead and try to go get an ace when we could probably help these guys out again?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm scared of, because you've already seen the negatives of it. Why would you want to go duplicate it again? So then what? You're going to wait till the trade deadline when half the season is already over and you're going to try to bank on that when you can just be aggressive and go get yourself an arm? Like, this is what I'm saying. I want them to go get an ace and kind of fluxer up this rotation, but he just doesn't give me the vibe that he's going to do that. And that's what I'm scared of, because I love Shamanaya. But if Shamanaya is going to keep giving us what he gave us this year, I don't want it. Put him in the bullpen.
Yeah.
If Clay Holmes is going to be your only consistent starter, keep him in the rotation. But let him and McLean be the only two guys that are going to be your for sure starters going into 2026, and try to get something different. It's okay to try to get, with something different, and have a conversation with these guys. I mean, like, listen, what you gave us last year can't happen again, and we can't take that risk. If Kodai Senga has to go into the bullpen starting the year, then take that risk with him. At the end of the day, it's okay, because you have to do what's right for this organization. You can't go by what the players want.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, I know last year was building this rotation around Shamanaya and Kodai Senga, who are not aces, have ace-like potential, but, can't stay consistent enough to be aces. I am not building this rotation around Kodai Senga again.
No,
absolutely not. Honestly, to me, and I don't know if people agree in the chat, if you told me we're probably going to let Kodai Senga go or trade him or something like that, I probably would be okay with it, because we have done for so long is try to build this rotation around it. We need to have a 6-man rotation. We need to make sure that he only pitches, every 6th day. He can't do this. He can't do that. And even all the stuff that he's got to rework his mechanics again. Like, enough already. I need some legit starters in this rotation. MEZ saying I'm a Stern supporter, but he has to trade for a starter. A guy like Freddie Peralta, for example. We need an ace-like starter. Look at some of the guys in Seattle. I'd even look into some of those guys. Maria.
I'm happy that you brought that up. Shout out to Queens Baseball Space. Shout out to the Pope. In that space earlier, a couple hours ago, there was one guy that I mentioned that probably won't get traded. But if there's one guy that I believe he is a free agent after next year, or he is a free agent after this, I got to double check. So don't quote me on it. Brian Wu. That kid is nasty.
That is I don't know if he's watching this because he was doing his show earlier, but that is a Ibby special. Ibby is a huge Brian Wu fan.
Ibby's about to give me a gift basket after seeing this, because Brian Wu, after what I saw, I knew a lot about him. But after what I saw in his start on that Saturday game again, when we played against the Seattle Mariners, where Frankie Montas started for us, he shoved, and he went 6 innings, and he only kept us under. He literally, they were losing 1-0 the entire game. He had our entire lineup quiet. So that kid, with the movement that he has on his pitches, he has a high velocity fastball. He could paint the strike zone very well. That kid would be perfect for what not only David Stearns is trying to do with this rotation, but he's young. He fits right in with Nolan McLean. And if you want to keep Tong in here, you want to keep Brandon Sproat, I'd tell David Peterson and Sean Manaea, yo, go hit the bricks in the bullpen.
Yeah.
As of right now.
And Brian Wu is not even the top of their rotation. I mean, you Luis Castillo, George Kirby, Logan, 4 guys we're talking about. The Mets couldn't even field 2 rotation pieces for the season, that they had to rely on the kids who I felt bad for, Jonah Tong, Brandon Sproat, and Nolan McLean to be the saviors of this rotation. Next year, them coming into the rotation, and David Stearns did say that both Sproat and McLean will be a very important piece to this pitching staff. Tong maybe needs to go to AAA, get a little more time there. He'll be fine, I think. Just don't rush him back up here, and I think he'll be okay. But they need legit starting pitchers. MEZ also throwing in Framber Valdez as a starting pitcher from the left-hand side. These are names that we'll be definitely keeping an eye on. Maria is not a fan of Stearns. Thinks it's the saying "kumbaya" as she's saying here. But Stearns has a lot of work to do to get back into the fans' graces, to get probably back into to Cohen's good graces, because I'm pretty sure Cohen is not happy with what happened this season. No one is happy with what they've seen so far. Daron Rivera is saying Senga is too brittle and the rotation is probably affected by coaches catering to Senga's needs. This is a reason why I'm okay with, if you told me that it's time to let Senga go, that I would be fine with that. And maybe it is time to move on. Nelson Cruz saying they need to woo that guy Wu. I would totally be on top of that. Steven Steele saying Wu is arbitration eligible in 2027 and a free agent in 2030. So it would take a trade and probably a lot of prospects to get him here. But if this guy's legit in the rotation, we got the pieces, right? We got one of the best farm systems in baseball. According to ESPN, we have the best. So gotta start thinking about it.
Gotta win now, right, Ant? That's all that it is. That's all that it is. And again, people have questions about Jonah Tong. I mean, listen, Jet Williams and Brandon Sproat were about to go for Garrett Crochet if David Stearns would have pulled the deal. So if you're not gonna pull it on Garrett Crochet, why not do it for Brandon for Brian Wu? And of course, I'm sure Seattle's probably gonna ask for a little bit more, but again, proactive. You gotta give up big to get big.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where the Mets are at right now. So
we'll wrap up the show here with kind of a mini type of season review. We basically talked about the whole season throughout this entire show. So we'll do a little bit here of, what were the best parts of this season, which there weren't many, and what were disappointing to us here. We'll start with the bullpen. What was your biggest disappointment coming out of the bullpen?
Just lack of inconsistency. Again, you're gonna hear me say that word a lot because that's basically how you summarize how this season was. With the bullpen, the problem was just them not being able to give you a competent inning, not being able to give you a strong inning. Every time somebody came out of the bullpen, it was always giving up a leadoff walk, having two runners on base with no outs. I mean, for God's sakes, Ryan Helsley was getting booed even before he got out the dugout. If that doesn't tell you how bad it was, I don't know what does. They even stopped playing his light show. They kept it regular lights with just his music playing in the background. That's how bad it was. AJ Minter getting hurt. Shout out to Stephanie who just mentioned that. I completely forgot about him. Just again, guys
Stanek
not
being
being
awful, absolutely awful the entire
exactly.
season. Reed Garrett having to go down
Oh
to
my
Tommy John
God.
surgery.
Yeah.
Huascar Brazaban couldn't stay up. The list goes like Max Cran. We went through 46 pitchers this season.
God.
46. I can't remember a season where every day I would go on X and see the Mets post that little roster moves graphic
Oh,
of
yeah.
all the changes that they were going through on a day in and day out basis. These are the names that Max Kranick, Brandon Waddell, Paul Blackburn, Justin Hageman, Chris Davinsky. Remember Genesis Cabrera?
Yes.
Justin Garza, Alex Carrillo, Jose Urena, Tyler Adcock, Tyler Zuber, Zach Pop, Dom Hamill, Colin Poche, Jonathan Pinataro. I mean, Richard Lovelady. The names go on and on. Blade Tidwell, who got eventually traded, and Jose Castillo. Like, that's too much for a team to go through this. Like, I know you want to have guys with options. I get it. I understand it. But you won't need that if you actually have some legit pitchers in this staff. I know they get hurt, but you got to have some legit names in here so we don't have to use those guys down there on the farm. Other bullpens do it. They're fine. I don't know why this is such a problem for the Mets. And it sucks. At least we can hang our hat on, the best closer in baseball right now, Edwin Diaz, 1.63 ERA. He only had 28 saves this season. That sucks, man. He's one of the best closers in baseball, and he really found his form kind of more towards the 2022. Edwin Diaz, I knew 2024 was going to be a kind of, comeback season for him, missing 2023, especially with the knee injury from the WBC. But Edwin Diaz delivered this season to me.
Right. I mean, it's kind of sad that we're probably in a position where he might opt out, and we might be in a position where, I mean, I do feel like they'll bring him back, but you just never know because you don't find closers like Edwin Diaz. He's in his prime. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's giving you prime numbers right now as one of the best closers in baseball. Literally, in my opinion, to me, it's him and the kid that San Diego gave up their I'm having a brain fart, but that they gave up half their prospects for, that they traded from Oakland. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, Mason Miller, right?
There we go. It's, to me right now, the two best closers right now are him and Edwin Diaz. So, with Edwin Diaz possibly trying to think about that and maybe opting out, it's gonna be a scary one because you just never know. But what a treat it has been to see him pitch and just being one of the most dominant closers in the game. I mean, we all were there when he struggled his first year in 2019. It was bad. You're talking about the guy could just never find a consistent save.
Oh,
he had
in
to
2019, he single-handedly cost the team a postseason appearance.
Yeah,
on his own.
To be able to rewrite his wrongs and have a historic 2022, then get hurt in 2023, come back in 2024 and kind of revamp himself a little bit, and then just be dominant again this year. Like, I hope that Steve Cohen can bless this brother and just be like, you're meant to be here. Like, you've done so much here since being traded here. So, nothing but love I could say, and so much positivity for Edwin Diaz.
Yeah, I hope that Edwin comes back. One, that he's from the same town as my grandfather in Puerto Rico. So I like to see him come back. But just on the field, some of the big saves that he had last year in Atlanta, although he had that fumble in the 8th inning. I mean, the guy came back out, dude pitched like 40, 45, 50. He almost had a start. There
Yeah,
were that
yeah.
many pitches that he had, but like he always comes back and bounces back, and he loves playing in New York. I think he's well adapted over here. I think that he works well with the Cohen family, especially when he was rehabbing in 2024. They gave him all the amenities as possible to get him back and get him healthy. And you look without him, it's kind of like Pete Alonso. How are you replacing him?
Right.
I assume that they tried testing this out with Ryan Helsley, right? And it didn't work. So
No. Right.
I don't know what other closers. I haven't checked the free agency list yet. I haven't checked any of that stuff. But to me, you have a guy that can pitch in New York, a guy that can close here. I am not messing with getting rid of Edwin Diaz. Obviously, relievers have up and down years, but Edwin Diaz has been one of the least people that we've had to worry about in the bullpen over the last 4 to 5 years.
Right. I mean, again, you couldn't have said it any better. That's one guy, that's one diamond in the rough that you can't lose. You can't lose. And like I said, I think with his relationship with Cohen and how close he is with Alex Cohen, I think that's one that they'll probably push to really keep. Especially because what he said yesterday, he said nothing but positivity about the organization. And I think he deserves that. You know what I'm saying? He's been nothing but awesome, nothing but clutch. The numbers speak for itself. The fan base loves him. I mean, when it's all said and done, and he's done with his baseball career, Met fans are, he has a story here. And I think, it's not like he's been mid or bad. No, he's been great. Like he deserves his pay. So I think they'll bring him back.
When it comes to the rotation, I think the biggest positive to me came from Clay Holmes. Coming out of the bullpen in the Bronx, hasn't started in a really long time and didn't get that many starts to begin with in the beginning of his career. But he ends the season 12-8, 3.53 ERA, and probably pitched one of the most important games of his career in a must-win situation, do or die. He comes in, pitches 6 innings, giving up only 1 run after the fact that he was way past his innings limit. Like by August, he was already past his innings limit, where we were thinking maybe they'll limit him, maybe they'll throw him in the bullpen, and he kept starting. So the fact that he was able to do what he did this season under the circumstances, I think he's been the best part of the rotation. I don't want to get too much on David Peterson. One, because last season he came back from the hip surgery, pitched the way that he did, started off very well. And also he's another guy that went past his innings limit, especially coming back from that hip surgery. Obviously he fell apart during the second part of this season, but I really enjoyed some of the big games that he pitched, had that complete game shutout. How many times do we see that, especially at Citi Field and with the Mets? So him and Clay Holmes were the least of the worries, but the problem really was with Kodai Senga, the loss of Griffin Canning, Tyler McGill losing him to Tommy John surgery, and Sean Manaea really not getting off on the right foot there.
Right. I do want to give a special shout out to Griffin Canning because he kind of passed a little bit of an expectation. Yeah. Not everybody was giving him a chance, obviously, because he had a bad 2024. So for him to pitch the way he did, I think he was
statistically the worst pitcher in baseball coming into this season. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. He was the number one ranked worst statistic pitcher in 2024. Comes into 2025 and actually finished his season when he got hurt with a 6-3 record, and I believe it was his ERAs was in the 3s. But for a guy to struggle that bad last year to finish off the way he did, I got to tip my cap to him. I'm agreeing with you with David Peterson. David Peterson, I think I'll give more of a judgment on him if he comes into next year and see what he can do. It's crazy to think that Clay Holmes was possibly your best pitcher. I got to tip my cap to him. Was given an opportunity to do something he's barely done, and he passed a lot of expectations. Obviously, he's had his moments where he kind of struggled, and I get that. He's not a hard thrower. The guy leaves the ball a lot in the zone. Batters will adjust from time to time, but he was able to get a lot of swing and miss stuff. Look very comfortable. And I think, again, he's on a 3-year deal. If you can look to keep him utilized on your rotation, he's going to be a big piece if you keep him as your 4 or 5 in your rotation. So nothing but respect to Clay Holmes. He definitely passed expectations, and he proved a lot of people wrong, man. It was fun to see, and I can't wait to see what adjustments he makes going into 2026.
We got a lively chat today. Appreciate everyone in here. 262 people in this room for this show right now. We're going to wrap up with the hitting and this lineup here. We've said everything we've needed to say about Pete Alonso, right? I mean, basically carried the team for the first 2 months of the season. Had a couple of big hits here and there, although it would have been nice to have a big one on Sunday when he had the bases loaded. But
Right.
I can't complain about the season that Pete Alonso had, breaking the all-time Mets record that was held by Darryl Strawberry for so long. He will definitely, like you said, probably get his number retired and be an all-time Met when all is said and done. So besides Pete Alonso, we got 30-30 from Francisco Lindor. We got Juan Soto almost getting 40-40. He had 38 home runs, and he had he had 43 home runs, 38 RBIs, and 105. 43 home runs, 105 RBIs, 38 stolen bases. There we go. Because I'm looking at it on the piece of paper, and I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't sound right. Right. There we go. We got it. But Juan Soto's season is a little confusing, right? I mean, the stats are there, right? It looks like a great season on paper. He hit 238 with runners in scoring position this year. A lot of those home runs were solo shots. I'm not taking anything away from Juan Soto because, I mean, technically, he did live up to the first year of this contract if you look at those stats. And he's not the only one that didn't hit well with runners in scoring position. But if he did, we'd be in a totally different situation right now. And we'd be talking about game 1 of the wild card series against the Los Angeles Dodgers right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason. If you kind of notice, every time he hit a home run, I called him El Matatang. El Matatang, for those that don't know, is somebody who's strong, successful, and a lot of Dominicans use it as a slang, but that's what it means. He seems to be successful in a lot of clutch situations. And even those solo home runs that he hit were very clutch at times throughout the season. And that's why I called him that. I use that nickname for him. But, it's funny that you say that, hitting 238, but if just watching the game every day, especially in the second half of the year, you almost forget about that because this dude was just on a tear going into like coming out of July, going into August. He couldn't be stopped. Like he was getting on. It got to the point where even the first game against Detroit, where he hits that grand slam, and you're like, dude, this guy cannot be stopped. Like you're like, there's nobody that could. It's enough about pitching around him. You got to pitch to him at this point because there's not, or you got to walk him. And again, he got hot at the right time. It's just unfortunate that when he got hot, nobody else could follow up. And that's the unfortunate part. But he's lived up to everything that you can ask for. He's had a lot of clutch hits. Just again in his prime, 26 years old. You can't say enough about him. We've seen him so much, what he's done with the Nationals and what he did with the Padres. That to have a guy like that on your team is so refreshing. Like I always tell Met fans, I'm like, I understand we're struggling right now, but appreciate the fact that you have this guy on your team because there is not a lot of guys that can hit with his IQ. Like that's the main thing when it comes to Soto is it's not even about his power, it's about his IQ at the plate. He's got the most insane IQ as a hitter that I've ever seen, and I don't think it really is appreciated as much as it needs to be. So it's definitely fun to see him. Year 1 is out the way, and the fact that we still got 14 more years with this dude, it's incredible to say. So I can't wait.
And he'll be with Francisco Lindor, who hit 30-30 for the second time in his Mets career. This was his worst defensive season. We talked about it earlier. Definitely for me, he had a lot of miscues and errors, but he still had a couple clutch hits here and there. Had 256 batting average with runners in scoring position. I think that, we have probably another couple years left of his prime as a shortstop. And offensively, hopefully he stays as strong as he is now to go along with Juan Soto. Brandon Nimmo, I think he overdid his home runs and RBIs, right? 25 home runs, 92 RBIs. Those are career best for him. So, it's just, where do you bat him? That's the problem. Where do you bat Brandon Nimmo? Because should he be leading off? Do you move Francisco Lindor? I just don't know what the best spot is for Brandon Nimmo. So we'll see, especially when they, rejigger this lineup and maybe they bring Alonso back. Maybe they bring someone else in. We'll see how Brandon Nimmo falls in there. I'll shout out to Brett Beatty and Francisco Alvarez. Yes, not the best seasons for them, but Francisco Alvarez, the fact that he got beat up so much behind the plate this year, got hit so much, got sent down, came back up, and was able to finish the season as strong as he did. Good for him. Brett Beatty as well, finishing strong. And it sucks that he got hurt the weekend. Probably could have used him on Sunday. But Brett Beatty is probably going to be the starting third baseman, at least in my eyes, unless they get, Alex Bregman or something like that, who's probably going to be a free agent. But Brett Beatty's probably earned his keep at third base.
Right. Wow, you started the offseason already. Alex Bregman, that might be a Christmas present that the Mets fans might get early. Who knows? I mean, Brett Beatty did not play a bad second base at all. I gotta commend the kid for being able to play really solid defense at second base. But yeah, he's been one of those that's, when the opportunity was there, he's tried. This was the most success that he has had in terms of being able to be put in the lineup and just being able to do something. The problem goes back to what we were saying earlier. He can never get enough playing time to show his consistency. He would play 2 games and then he would be out. He would play 1 game and then he would be out. He wasn't playing every day for us to kind of see what his potential was. And again, he was hitting lefties great this year. So it would have been cool to see him consistently be in a lineup against lefties, and we didn't really see it that much. But he showed a lot of power. He showed a lot of discipline, especially defensively. Last year, people were complaining about his defense. This year, I think his defense was impeccable. Yeah, I think he showed a lot of potential this year, and I can't wait to see the opportunity that he may get next year.
I think the worst for me, center field obviously was very non-existent at the plate, except for a couple of big games from Tyrone Taylor. But you had Jose Siri there, who got designated for assignment. Cedric Mullins, coming from the trade, did absolutely nothing. And the Mets really were left with Jeff McNeil in center field. And Jeff McNeil, I feel like, is just not it anymore. If someone mentioned, I think it was John Sapanaro from Till Mets Studios Park, if he's not hitting close to 300 or batting like Luis Ariz, he is not useful. And he's just not. Maybe he had a good week or two span, but I think it's time that the Mets move on from Jeff McNeil. And also the biggest disappointment, which I kind of saw coming because I thought he was going to have a sophomore slump, Mark Vientos.
Yeah. I've always stated the fact that I think ever since Mark Vientos was taken out of the 2-hole, it ruined his confidence. There's no way a kid could dominate like he did last year in the 2-hole, then all of a sudden you move him out. I get, you got to play the comforts of Juan Soto. I understand that. But this kid showed you something to where that 2-hole was him. And I understand it. He's not a great defender. Trust me, if he goes to first base and Pete's not here and he's our first baseman, I would lose my head. I would lose it because he's not a good defender. He's not. But at the same time, I think his confidence went down when he started playing less because he wasn't playing every day. Yeah, he struggled and then he got hurt. But before he got hurt, he was starting to find his groove. Then all of a sudden he got hurt. He comes back and he's still hitting consistently. But then Mendoza started to bench him more to play Ronnie and he started playing Beatty just a little bit more. So it's like no matter how many games you play, especially for somebody that's finally finding his consistency with that team, it's gonna ruin that. It's gonna ruin your momentum at some point. So, he really couldn't find it this year, especially after coming back from that injury. And that was right after he hit. I believe that was either right after or right before he hit that grand slam in San Diego, where everything kind of started to turn positively for him. But yeah, man, if they give him another opportunity next year, I would really like to see it more on the offensive side and not have him on the field, just because we can never find a way for him to be consistent on defense. It's not there. So, if you want to utilize him, and people still think, which I still think he does, but he can also be a trade piece. I think he'd be a good DH option until he proves that he can't be. And then that's when you start looking into DH at the trade deadline maybe, and try to maybe move him. But give him that opportunity just to see if his power is still there. Because as of right now, Brett Beatty owns third base, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Brett Beatty, it's his third base is his to lose. We've seen it in the past, but I think that this was a huge confidence boost for him this season, the way he played. And Mark Vientos at third base last season was okay. A lot of his deficiencies get masked because he hit so well and played so well in the postseason. So we'll see how this team plans out. Baba Booey saying, I'm glad that this high-tech state-of-the-art pitching lab worked out this year when it regard to the pitching. Right. Maureen saying too many baby Mets, one or two will be traded. I wouldn't be shocked if they are, honestly, right. Especially with Jet Williams and Carson Benj on the mend getting ready to come up. I wouldn't be shocked. Then you also got Jacob Reimer, AJ Ewing. You got some names that are going to get ready to come up. And good point here from Baba Booey. Let's not forget about Christian Scott, who's coming back next year. Saw him doing a little bit of bullpen pitching off the mound finally. So he'll be another option out of the rotation. I just don't want to count on all of these kids. Like, you need to have more stable rotation members for this Mets team. Don't want to count on Senga, David Peterson, and Clay Holmes if they're in the rotation. And you can include Sean Manaea as well. Those guys got to be closer towards the end of the rotation. And then you sprinkle in McLean, Sproat, and a top line ace has to be in this rotation next year, whether via trade or whether by free agency. David, man, this has been a lot of fun. Doing this show with you today. I appreciate you for coming in. I know we've been in the works for doing this, but know you're always welcome on Subway to Shea, and you'll always be a part of this. I owe you a show for your podcast as well, so we got to get that going up sometime soon. Maybe sometime this off season we can chat it up and get something scheduled. But what do you got coming up, my friend?
Well, I obviously got to, give my side on the whole collapse and everything like that. So I got a video coming up on the weekend, more lives, just talking about the off season. I think, this is a time for everybody just to kind of calm down, reflect, and just kind of get the whole, Mets thing just out the way before we get into business of the off season. But just a lot of more lives, kind of just talking to the fan base, kind of giving my opinions on what they should do, what they shouldn't do. Before you know it, off season is going to be done. We're back in spring training, and we're back for part 2 of the Juan Soto Lindor mix, and possibly Pete being here or not. So we'll see what happens. But just a lot of off season talks. I obviously want to have you on for a lot of off season stuff, and yeah, I mean, listen, this trade, this what you would call it, the winter deadline, whatever you call it. I just had a brain mix up. I know you had one where you were actually live when they signed Juan Soto.
Yeah,
so that was historic.
I broke with Shea and Sons. We broke the Juan Soto news on the show, so that was a lot of fun. That'll be happening. Our winter meeting special with Shea and Sons, that'll be coming up too. And like I said, you'll be a part of all off season and regular season, and I'm pretty sure we'll see each other at Citi Field like we do every year. And I just appreciate you for being a part of this and for coming on, and obviously being a great friend of mine. and
Of course.
I appreciate you as always, my friend. I'll say this to we are putting to bed now this season, right?
Yes.
We're putting to
Yes.
bed this season, and it's done with. Time to move on. Don't. Yeah, I yesterday I might have been a little over the top with some of my comments on X, but once you sit down, I couldn't do a show yesterday. If I went on and
Listen,
did a show yesterday, it would have been a mess. But
I'm
you gotta
gonna
sit
tell
back.
you guys the one thing I will never ever change it. Every time I'm at the game at City Field and Jeremy Hefner finally comes out, the one comment that I see is Ant. I'm in a group chat with Ant, and Ant literally kills it. It is the funniest thing ever because it's not only that it's funny, but it's true. Like you start asking yourself at the stadium, where's Hefner? And I kid you not, bro. There were moments where I had to take my camera and zoom in into the dugout and try to see if I could find this guy because he would never come. He would only come out when there were pressure situations.
Yeah.
It's like at this point, why are you even coming out? Like, come on, man. Like, so I get your frustration. So it's always classic because the way you put it, it's like I could see Ant right now just trying. He's about to punch the wall. I get it.
Look, this is why we do these shows, right? Like this is
Right.
kind of, I guess, therapeutic for us to let it all out here. And I think we were pretty fair to everything that's
Yeah.
happened this season.
Yeah.
Put a lot of blame and emphasis on what needed to be blamed. And as IHPJ is saying, the pitchers did suck. The true honesty. The pitchers sucked this season. They were awful. So yeah, let's move on. After this, we're done with the season. I got one more show coming up on Sunday morning. I'm going to be back in the Sunday morning time slot for the off season, lead you guys into football and get that out of the way and stuff like that. So we'll do one more show this Sunday, and then I'm going to take a little bit of a break. I need a little a mental break from baseball, so I'm going to take a little bit of a break, and we'll come back probably in November once the World Series is done, start prepping for what is to be a very huge offseason for the Mets and one David Stearns, because he's the one that's putting this team together. If you want to see my other work, the hockey season's getting ready to start, so I will be on Total Hockey Now doing fantasy and betting with my friends Adam Bernard and Christopher Moraes. We just had a fantasy draft for our hockey season. Check out our channel, Total Hockey Now. So if you like hockey, I know you're getting into hockey, right? You started watching a little bit of Rangers.
I'm actually in a group chat with a couple Devil fans myself, and they're killing me. So they're like, get ready because the Rangers ain't doing nothing this year. So I'm like, oh my God.
It's going to be a long, fun season. So if you enjoy hockey like I do, like David does, then and then David's got basketball coming up. We got the Knicks coming up, brother.
The Knicks. Well, I got the Knicks, and I'm going through it with the Giants. So I suffer a lot. If you start seeing gray hairs in my beard, Ant, by next year, just know it's because of New York sports. New York sports does not know when to give you a calm year. It's always a stressful year with New York sports, no matter if they're good or bad. So
at least we have each other to come together and just talk, chat it up, whether we're at the games, in our group chats, on these shows. I mean, 297 people showed up tonight to vent with us and be a part of it. Can't thank everyone enough. There's too many names to put there. So thank you to everybody that was a part of Subway to Shea today and this season as a whole. It was a long season to get through, a lot of frustration. I mean, there was a lot of times where I didn't want to do a show. There were a lot of times that I didn't want to do a show by myself. And you guys all helped me get through this. And obviously our chat is always a lot of fun to be a part of. But you can follow Subway to Shea on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea. You can follow me at Ant Rivera 86. You can follow David, Top Bunk Sports, at Top Bunk Sports, and follow his YouTube page, as well as is the 7 Express podcast coming back?
Yes, we actually have a live that's going to happen tomorrow to kind of recap the season on our thing. So shout out to AP, Chris, and Amish, which is Nelson that is in here as well. We will be recapping our opinions on the season and David Stearns and all that. So make sure you guys follow and the 7 Express podcast and subscribe, and we'll be on live tomorrow.
Absolutely. And you can subscribe to the audio portion of Subway to Shea, which will be up tomorrow. And you can do that on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. But if you want to be a part of the chat like you were today, you want to be a part of the conversation, you are doing that here on YouTube as well as X. That wraps up this season of the Subway to Shea podcast, episode 218, getting ready for the 2025-26 offseason and what looks to be a very important 2026 for this Mets team. But we always end the show, no matter what, win, loss, no matter what we're going through, it's always let's go Mets.